let me introduce my guests. So, readers Andrew and Stephen Ritchey, they're from Birmingham, Alabama. They're brothers, and as I already mentioned, they work together on a YouTube series. So they're sort of content creators together. They're a team. They also serve as readers at St. Symeon Orthodox Church, and they've actually released books as well, books and activities, as well as a children's show, which is musical and adorable and very cool. So without any further ado, welcome to the program, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a joy to be here.
It's delightful to have you here. Now, are the two of you, are you twin brothers, or who's older? What's the arrangement there? What's the birth order?
I am older. There are 10 of us total in our family. So I am number 6. Andrew is number 8.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. That is fantastic. All right. Well, then, since you were born first, Stephen, we'll start with you. Tell us just a little bit, like, were you born in Birmingham? Have you always been there? Were you always Orthodox? How does the story start?
Yeah, so all of us were born in Birmingham, sweet home, Alabama. My whole family converted. We started out Melkite Catholic, and then in 2001, we all converted. Andrew was actually the first to be baptized as an infant, so the rest of us converted. But I was 3 at that point, so I've kind of grown up in the faith, and I consider myself cradle once removed.
I like that. I like that very much. Oh, that's cool. Is Melkite Catholic pretty similar to Orthodox in terms of worship, I would imagine?
It's very similar. My dad always says if you sneeze when they say the Pope's name, you'll think it's an Orthodox liturgy.
Right. It's like just commemorating a different patriarch. That's about Excellent. So that's kind of funny, though, because if I ask the same question of you, Andrew, I get, no, I'm cradle Orthodox. I was born Orthodox. I've been Orthodox all along.
That's right, yeah. So the family converted in December of 2001, and then I was born in January of 2002. So I was like just made it in, a couple, honestly, probably not even a month, because I think the family was chrismated on like the 13th of December, and I was born on January 8th. So they hadn't been Orthodox for even a month before I was born.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really neat, though. That's lovely. I love that. Okay. So I'll just go back and forth between you guys. So, Stephen, tell me, what is it like to grow up with this many siblings? So you've got, am I correct, 5 ahead of you and 4 younger than you? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
How do you like
correct.
it being in the middle of a big, big family?
It is a blast. Never a dull moment. Growing up, there was always something to do. There was always somebody to play with. And being in the middle was nice because I had the older siblings who I could look to and who were there to kind of guide me when I needed it. And then I had the younger siblings who I could guide and pick on. And, so I got the best of both worlds for that.
See, that's beautiful. I love that. That's very good. How about Andrew? Same experience, or what do you think? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. like Stephen said, there's never a dull moment. So if one sibling was tired of playing with you or dealing with you, you had 9 more to choose from. And it was really neat growing up, and even now that a lot of us are adults, being able to share specific things with specific siblings, like obviously Stephen and I have kind of our creative partnership, but I'm a graphic designer and I have a brother who's a landscape designer. So we took a lot of similar classes in college. So we get to kind of talk about those and share ideas with one another. And growing up, it was a similar thing. Some of us had similar interests. So we all got excited about, this group got excited about this and the other group, about that. And it was wonderful, and it still is.
Oh, that's neat. I love to hear that. I think that's just beautiful. So so Stephen, tell me a little bit about your parents then. What are their roots? What made them decide to have 10 kids? In this day and age, people don't do it that much, right? Like they don't just keep going and going and going. What was going on with your parents?
They're kind of superheroes. I have no clue how they managed to keep us all in line, keep us all alive, much less in line when we were young. For a while, my parents thought that they couldn't have kids once they were married. And so I always say they've been praying and praying and praying to have kids. And God said, okay, you asked for it. And so Mom and dad went from 1 to 5 in 3 years because there was the oldest and then 2 sets of twins back to back. So they definitely have worked very hard. They've earned a lot of gems in their crowns, and they've just done a really great job, in my opinion.
I mean, they are superheroes because after that, right? Like after that beginning, I don't know that there are a lot of people who wouldn't have been like, all right, this
Yeah.
is careful. That was a lot of kids real fast. That
Mhm.
was a whole lot real fast. Now, so Andrew, tell me, do you guys have more sets of multiples later, or is it just the first 2 sets of twins?
It's just the first 2 sets of twins, and actually everyone after them are a little more spaced out.
Yeah.
Stephen, how far are you from Patrick and Elena?
I'm just a year or 2, maybe a year and a half from them.
And then after that, it's like 2 years. It's 2 years between him and my next brother, and then between me, and then 3 years between me and my younger sister, and 3 years between her and our brother. So it actually, I guess they were making up for the missed time with the first 2 sets of twins.
Yeah, exactly. They paced themselves after that. They really, I think
That's
they
right.
learned a lesson. I think they definitely learned a lesson. That's beautiful. That's super neat. Okay. Well, so tell me, Stephen, for you personally, does you look at your parents with all these kids taking all of this on? You say that's very saintly. Is this something you want to do? You want to have 10 kids? Or are you thinking, my parents are very saintly. I am following a different path.
Well, my parents are very saintly, and I'm working on it. My wife and I, are actually expecting our first child in about a month now.
Oh,
So we just had her baby
congratulations.
shower today. Very excited about it. Totally unprepared, but I think we'll be all right.
There's no
And
such thing
we
as
have,
prepared. It's
yeah,
okay.
exactly. We've talked about it, and we said, yeah, 10 or 12. Let's go for it. It's a lot of
Oh,
fun.
that's awesome. That's fantastic. I love to hear that. It's at least it's optimistic, right? And we'll start there and we'll see. But
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I love
We'll see
that.
how the
How
one
about
starts and then go from there.
yeah, how about you, Andrew? Do you feel called to try to have a huge family as well, or what do you think?
I would definitely like to. Both my wife and I come from bigger families, and so in our discussions, we have kind of hoped for that. And a big part of it is when you grow up in a big family, it's such a like we had that experience. And I would go to school with people who had one sibling, and they'd be like, "Oh, my one sibling is the worst. I can't stand him. I wish I was an only child." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Having siblings is awesome." And so I would love for my kids, God willing, one day to have that same kind of experience.
That's beautiful. I love that. But I think it's true. It's a different situation because when you have one sibling, maybe you don't get along really well for a couple of years, right? Because like developmentally, you can kind of butt heads at different stages. But when you have enough siblings to go around, you will always have a friend, right? You may also always have a nemesis, but you will always have a friend. There's always going to be somebody that you're getting
That's
along
right.
with. That's
And that's
fantastic.
actually kind of how it was with me and Andrew. I was sort of Andrew's nemesis for probably the first 10 or 12 years of his life. He was the one that I would pick on, and so we butted heads a lot. But it's interesting to see how now that we're both adults, he was my best man at my wedding. Like, so we've grown so close as adults, whereas kids, we were always at odds.
Why do you think that is? What was it? Is it just like the specific 4 year age difference just kind of lined you up wrong, or was it?
I
What do you
don't
think it
know.
was?
I admit I was the trouble child of the family. Um, and there's no secret about that. Everybody knows that. Uh, and so I guess Andrew was just so the brother right under me. He would fight back. Andrew wouldn't fight back. So I think that's why I kind of chose him. But also
Because Andrew's
saying
a
that
pacifist. Okay, well, a lot of
exactly,
makes you do.
even
That's great.
even when I was picking on Andrew, I would say like I had so much respect for him because he just took it so well. And so that respect has grown now, and now it's more of a mutually beneficial respect.
Well, I think that's good. I think good. Andrew, what do you think? Did he pick on you as much as he's saying? Was it terrible?
He absolutely did pick on me as much as he's saying. Um, I won't hide that. We definitely were not enemies. I mean, with none of our siblings, I don't think any of us really ever didn't get along so much that we were like constantly at odds with one another. But if it was going to be any two pairs, it was kind of me and Stephen. And I don't think it was more necessarily like our personalities butted heads or anything. It was just he was very strong-willed and generally troublesome. And like he said, I guess I just, quote, took it well. I didn't fight back. It's not something I did much, so it just worked out well for him. But nowadays, it is really interesting, like he mentioned, to see how well we work together, and our wives can attest to the fact that like we spend a ton of time together, and anytime we're in a public setting, we're going to try and find each other and laugh about this or talk about that or our running joke nowadays is that'll go in season 4. Anytime we have a funny comment or we think of a clever song line or something, we say, okay, we'll put that in season 4.
Yeah, Rocco season 4.
I love that. That's lovely. Okay, so Stephen, so you're kind of a troublemaker, strong-willed, difficult kid. What were you like? First, were you guys homeschooled or were you in schools? And what were your interests? And just what were you like as a kid growing up, like 12, 13, 14 years old?
We all went to public school. For the most part, we all actually did very well in school. Straight A's, extracurriculars. We all sang growing up, both in school and in different community choirs, and as a family. We had a family choir, which that was a lot of fun. And I think just kind of being the middle child, I was eager for that attention. So at school, I would be on my best behavior. I was saying yes, ma'am, yes, sir, getting all my good grades. And then at home, I just let it rip and was a tornado going around the house. And I was, I'm starting to not be that way after 20 some odd years.
Well, you're about to be a dad, so you'll be on the other end of it soon enough. And
That's right.
it'll all come right back to you, don't you worry.
Oh, I bet.
How about you, Andrew? What were you like as a kid?
I was definitely, I also did well in school and I tried hard, but at some point I realized that I could try hard in some things and I didn't have to try as hard in other things, and so I wouldn't bother. Whereas I feel like Stephen just tried he didn't necessarily have to, but he tried very hard in a lot of things, and he did really well because of that. I was much more of the kind of mindset of I'll do my best, but if it's not like perfect, that's fine with me. I was also a very creative child. I have some very distinct memories of me, like there's one memory of setting up a train downstairs just with some folding chairs and some cardboard and cardstock and colored paper and whatnot, cutting out things and making tickets and inviting my family to come sit in, which they all kind of begrudgingly did because it was like 6:30 on a Thursday evening or something, but very creative and not necessarily quiet, but I found that doing what mom and dad asked me got their attention a little bit better than being terribly rambunctious. So that was the route that I tried to take more of the time.
Very wise. Very, very wise. I love that the train thing. I've had, that's such a neat thing with kids when they design something, and when you have a big family, you can really do something that invites everybody in, right? Like all the other kids on your block just put their stuffed animals lined up in the train, but you had like this whole family that had to climb aboard. I love that. I love that image. It's fantastic. So Andrew, did you end up pursuing like a creative line of study when you finished high school? What did you end up doing?
So after high school, I went to the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is in Birmingham. It's like just down the street from the church. And I got my degree. I just graduated a couple weeks ago, actually, in graphic design. I would have probably gone into something music related, but I'm planning on attending seminary sometime in the near future. And so in my general future planning, I was trying to find something that I could do that might be a little more doable if I have to work while also being a priest. And I felt like it might be easier to find a graphic design job than it would to like teach music 9 to 5 or something. But obviously music is not, it's very much a part of my life. I'm our church choir director. Of course, we work on Rocco. I've actually just in the past couple of days been discussing with composers and musicians from around the country and trying to seek out opportunities of maybe where I can grow my musical side of me, while also pursuing the graphic design things that I do. It's kind of a handy pair, especially when working on our show, because of course the music comes in handy when we have that part to do, but then I can do all of the graphics for us. I can edit all of the episodes. I kind of have the technical knowledge of things that I got, through 3 years in school, plus YouTube, countless hours on YouTube.
Countless. See, parents, don't worry. Your kids are spending countless hours on YouTube. They're learning so much. So much. That's amazing. So, and I want to get back to the show in a sec because I want to hear all about that. But first, Stephen, tell us, so when you were finishing up school, finishing high school, what did you want to do next? Where'd you go?
For a long time, I did not know what I wanted to do. I had always been interested in the culinary arts, but I knew that owning a restaurant was such a time commitment and just so much stress, and I wouldn't be able to balance that kind of lifestyle with church and a family, just because you have to spend so much time at the place. And so when I graduated high school, I actually double majored at two different colleges. I got a degree in business management and a minor in entrepreneurship at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, that same school that Andrew went to. And then I also went to culinary school for baking and pastry arts. So the long-term plan is to open up my own dessert shop. Currently, I do like chocolate sales, and I make truffles and turtles and all sorts of fun candies. And hopefully, I can build that into a business that'll be able to sustain my family long term.
Oh, that's neat. That's really neat. I did not expect you to say that. That's cool. And that's very creative too, though, right? Especially with desserts, because there's so much visual about it and so much.
Oh yeah,
It's really
absolutely,
cool,
yeah.
and mixing flavors and all of that. Oh, how cool!
I'll spend 3 hours on something, and then somebody will eat it in about 2 minutes, and
right.
that's life.
Well, I
But I
mean,
can
like
attest.
other forms of art, though, it doesn't just pile up, right? Like people come and they eat it, and it's gone, and you've got a
That's right.
clean canvas for the next one.
And I can attest to the fact that his desserts are very good. So not only do they look good, but they're gone in 2 minutes because they're rather delicious.
Oh, I bet they are. That's great. I feel like there's an Orthodox family that has a big candy company in Birmingham, right? Like, isn't there like a, I don't remember. I'll come back
Maybe.
and I'll be like, okay, who are those chocolate guys? They make chocolate colored pretzels. But Birmingham's a good place for food in general.
Oh
So
yeah.
I bet you'll do very well there. That's awesome. Okay, well, so tell me, Stephen, how did you meet your wife?
We actually grew up at church together, and I'm going to embarrass her, but I had a little thing with her sister for a while, and we were just kind of talking. But we were much younger, so we were just kind of talking, a little bit of interest, and that didn't work out. So I thought, well, I'll just try the next one.
That's right.
Not actually how that happened. Uh, but so we've just grown up together at church. She was best friends with my little sister, and so she was over at the house a lot, and we just kind of got to know each other, and then we're married. And it's all a blur in between that. I don't know what happened.
Well, how old were you when you really sort of started to realize, like, oh, like maybe she's the one. Maybe she's someone I should really take seriously. Because, little things like best friend, right? Like she's cute, she's
Yeah,
fun, okay, but.
yeah. I guess we started dating in 2016. I don't know how old I was then. 18 maybe. Um,
Okay.
and she's the only girl I've ever dated. And I distinctly remember laying on the couch one night, like I was at a shrink, and telling my dad, Dad, I think I kind of like Adriana. And he said, I like her too. She's great. And so that's kind of how that started. And then for the longest time, we refused to let our relationship go anywhere, and we were both very happy in the friend zone. And then we finally both gave in and said, okay, fine, let's do this thing.
That's excellent. And here you are about to have a baby. That's wonderful.
That's right.
I love that. And how about you, Andrew? How did you meet your wife?
Not a very dissimilar story. My wife and I also met at church. We grew up together. Her family converted when she was like 7 years old, and she also was best friends with the same younger sister, and so was also always at our house. And she liked me for a long time. I did not like her back for a long time. And this was all when we were like 10 years old, you know, so it's just like grade school crushes. But she liked me for a long time, and all of her friends, all the other girls in that friend group were pushing me, like, you need to like her back. She has a crush on you. You got to have a crush on her back. And I was like, okay, but I don't. Like, that's not what it is. And eventually, obviously, it did come about. We were not allowed to date until we were 16, but our parents and my parents and her parents both kind of saw that we were interested in each other, and so they let us court from about 13 or 14. And so we would go on, rather than dates, we would go on friendship trips, which were very, you know, it was like that we'd have to have our respective parents drive us to the movie theater, and we'd watch a movie, and then we'd, you know, go back to our respective homes. And our families were close. Her parents would host like a really informal movie night at her house every Sunday. So I was always at her house. She was always at my house. And we actually ended up getting married when we were 19. We were both in college, and we'd just been together for so long. We kind of explained to our parents, and they had seen our relationship and understood. So they were. It took a little bit of persuading, but because my parents are very meticulous, I had to put together a spreadsheet that had what our budget would be, and then we had to test out the budget and make sure it was going to work. But thank God it did, and here we are nearing. It'll be 2 years for us this November.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I love that your parents needed a spreadsheet. We need a whole presentation, right? Like, put it up on the screen, show us what are you planning. But it's hard, right? I mean, it must have been hard to be, I guess you wouldn't know what it's like to be married and not be a college student yet, really, because you need a little bit of time. But you may find out it's actually way easier when you're not a full-time student to try to do that. So, I mean, congratulations for making it through that. That's just fantastic. That's impressive. All right, so we are going to go for a short break, and we will be right back. And I want to find out how this YouTube show came to be and how all of this got started. So to our listeners, you're welcome to call us at 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. And you're listening to the first ever video broadcast of Ancient Faith Live show. So it's very exciting. We'll be right back with the Ritchie brothers.
Everyday Orthodox with Elisa Bielatich-Davis will be back in a moment. Give Elisa and her guest a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Do you know that Ancient Faith Radio is entirely listener-supported? Hi, I'm Bobby Maddox, station manager of AFR, and you heard me right. All of those podcasts you love, the live shows, the conferences, the audio documentaries, and the videos, they only exist because of listeners like you who took the time and minimal effort required to send us $5 here, $10 there, even $100 on occasion, or sometimes more. That's how this ministry operates, in partnership with you, the AFR listener. Without these donations, both big and small, it is no exaggeration to say that there would be no Ancient Faith Radio. No Lord of Spirits or Live with the Lows, no Saint of the Day or Daily Orthodox Scriptures, no Father Thomas Hopko or Father Evan Armitage or Dr. Jeannie Constantinou. There would just be silence. Let's never let this happen, shall we? Together, let's continue to sustain AFR and even perhaps expand its offerings with contributions of any amount. Simply go to ancientfaith.com and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. Be a participant, be a partner, become a donor. Join those who make Ancient Faith Radio possible. Thanks in advance for your generosity. We're back with Everyday Orthodox with Elisa Bielatich-Davis. Do you have a question for Elisa and today's guest? Call in now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Here again is Elisa.
And welcome back to Everyday Orthodox. I'm Elisa Bielatich-Davis, and we're here tonight with two guests. We have reader Stephen Ritchey and reader Andrew Ritchey with us. And we've been talking just a little bit about YouTube because tonight is our first night broadcasting live with video on YouTube. And it occurs to me I haven't told you where our YouTube channel is. So if you go to youtube.com, you can just search Ancient Faith Ministries, or you can type youtube.com/@Ancient Faith Ministries, and it'll pull up to an Ancient Faith page. Now, on that page, you can stream Everyday Orthodox. But now, if you go to @Ancient Faith Kids, you should find a whole channel with all kinds of children's programming from Ancient Faith, which is really exciting, and we're very happy about it. And really, we sort of started slow, like one show, another show, another show. And just the absolute like runaway hit that has been going on that everyone enjoys, and just, it's a blast. It's called Rocco's Music Factory. And so tonight we're here with the guys from Rocco's Music Factory. So it's very exciting because this is their project, and it's adorable. It's so good, and I love it. And I do want to let you know, if you want to call in, you're welcome to do so. The number is 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. And don't worry, just because we're broadcasting with video, all the audio stuff is still there. We're still on the app. We're still on Ancient Faith. But okay, I want to hear, like, how did this even come to be, this Ancient Faith Kids show? Who should I ask? Andrew, tell me, like, what brought this on? Were you two thinking about doing a children's show, or what happened?
So I got an email forwarded. It was actually probably last June or July of 2022. It was forwarded to me by my wife's grandmother, who works for the local Greek church in Birmingham. And it was from Ancient Faith, and it said, "We're launching Ancient Faith Kids soon, and we're looking for content creators." Well, I'm a creative person. I actually, for a period of time, worked for that cathedral, and I had made some really, really simple children's videos where I was just in front of a camera explaining things to them. So I sent that link, and I said, "Hey, this is something I've done before, if it's what you're interested in." A couple months later, I get a reply, and it was like, "Hey, this is great. Let's set up a time to talk." So I got on a Zoom call, and I was talking to, it was Melissa Lauro, who was in charge of Ancient Faith Kids at the time. I was talking to her, and we were kind of throwing ideas back and forth. She had some ideas, I had some, and her ideas were a lot grander than what I had done. And so it was exciting. It was like, okay, this can actually be something, more than just me setting up a camera in my bedroom and shooting some videos where I talk about whatever. But I finished the call with her, and I said, "Look, I need to get my brother Stephen in on this, because the two of us together, that's where we're going to get the best stuff. We work really well together." So I immediately called Stephen, and I was like, "Stephen, I just had this call. Here are the ideas she had. Here are the ideas I had." And we both kind of gravitated toward puppets and music. To be honest, we didn't watch a ton of Sesame Street or the Muppets growing up. I mean, we were familiar with them, but it wasn't like a staple in our house or anything. So I'm not like the guy who ended up playing Elmo, who was like, "I just loved Jim Henson and everything he did." Like, I didn't really know that much about it, but we ran through some ideas. We actually wrote what is now it's now two different episodes, but we wrote one episode that was a mix of the current kindness episode and the current love episode that are both already released. We wrote a quick script. We did a really rough demo of the song, and we pitched it to Melissa on a call a little bit later, and she loved it. She had some ideas, and then we spent all of August last year. We went through some negotiations and idea exchange and whatnot, and kind of nailed down a format for the show. And then we spent all of August last year writing, filming, recording, and editing 18 episodes. So there's your spoiler to everyone. There are at least 18 episodes of this show. And then, to make a long story short, things with Ancient Faith Kids got delayed because of all sorts of factors, but it gave us the opportunity, I guess last December or so, to go back and refilm every episode and make edits where we wanted to. So we got to make a lot of tweaks that our show that we couldn't initially, just because we were so pressed for time. So a lot of it is quality things, little things like bumps in the microphone or bad glares in scenes, or poor green screening or whatnot. So now we're in the process of going through those episodes one by one refilming portions of them, re-editing or re-recording this and that, and then sending them back to Ancient Faith where they get, reviewed and then eventually posted.
Oh, that's neat. That's fantastic. Well, I remember actually I met Melissa around that time when you guys were first starting, and she was telling me about your show, and she was very excited about it. And I can see why, because it came out so well. And I think, I think it's such a great opportunity actually to get to go back. I mean, I know it's a downside. It's like, oh, we hurried to do this and then there's a delay. But on the other hand, how nice to get like a little time and then you go back to it and you see it with fresh eyes and you're like, oh, yeah, we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this. That's fantastic. I love that. And I do want to mention to our listeners, by the way, on the YouTube feed tonight, we are having a few video lag issues. So the video is a little bit behind, but we are working it out. This is our first time out, and we're getting it squared away, and it's just going to get better and better. But okay, so Stephen, what did you think when your brother called and was like, well, Ancient Faith is going to do kids content, and I'm talking to this lady. What did you think? Did you think it sounded like a crazy idea, or were you just super into it right from the start?
I don't remember my initial thoughts, but if I had to guess, I would have said it sounds like a crazy idea. Kind of the flow that Andrew and I have is he comes to me with this idea. It was the exact same way for the Search and Find book that we created. He said, look, I want to do this. And I say, that's ridiculous. There's no way. And then eventually he sells me on it and I go in with it. And then once I'm all in, he probably wishes that he hadn't brought me in because I keep saying, tweak this, change that. But that was probably how it was with the show. He said, I want to have this idea. And I thought, okay, well, maybe we can do this. And then as we kind of looked into it more and as it grew and developed, I was like, all right, there's some serious potential here. We watched, again, YouTube videos practicing our puppeting. And the original show started out in the guest bedroom of my apartment. And people who are familiar with the show will know the factory walls have the different colored boxes on them, a very fun background. Originally, in the original episodes that hopefully will never see the light of day, those lines are made of duct tape on the wall of my apartment guest bedroom. And an old lighting rig that we tried to set up with some old wedding lights we had. And so it was a learning curve, and we had a lot of fun with it. And that kind of led us to where we are today.
Oh, that's neat. That's cool. But so you are kind of the perfectionist brother, right? Like Andrew mentioned that in school you were like, no, I got to get all these things right. I got to get all these things right. So you were the one going, yeah, this is good, but hey, how about this and how about that? And is that kind of in your nature to always be making sure all the details are lined up?
I'm sure people who know me might beg to differ, but I would say so, especially from a business and from a culinary standpoint. It's nice to have everything, like you have your hand on everything, you have that kind of control, you know what the outcome is. And I'm sure, much to Andrew's chagrin, that I am so nitpicky about things because I'll tell him to go back 6 times and change the same thing. But the way that I see it is we can spend an extra 30 minutes working on this one scene that then when it's released, it's going to be out there forever. So let's spend the 30 minutes now to get the good quality forever.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with the internet, right? Like you put it out there and it's going to be there forever. So when you're making little mistakes and like if you hadn't gotten to go back and fix the green screen errors and things like that, then that's just going to be there forever and ever and ever, whether you like it or not. Although no matter what, technology will get better and it'll all look weird 5 years from now. But so Andrew, tell me a little bit about like what exactly is the premise of the show for anyone who hasn't seen Ancient Faith Kids at all. You've mentioned that it's musical, there's a puppet, there's a factory, but like what exactly is it that's going on in this show?
The general idea is that there's this wonderful place called Rocco's Music Factory where people can come with issues that they're having, and then the guy who owns the place and runs it, Rocco, will magically create a song for them that kind of explains how we understand the issues that they're dealing with. Of course, it's geared towards an Orthodox Christian kids audience. So in one episode, you might have, a little girl named Ellie come in and she explains that she's having trouble waiting for her mom to go get ice cream because they were supposed to get ice cream, but then a group of line dancing kangaroos is blocking the road, and so they're unable to do that. And she has to learn patience. And so you get transported into this kind of magical music world where Rocco takes on, in any of the given episodes, kind of the aura and genre of who knows what. It could be the Beach Boys, it could be Elton John, it could be a polka, or it could be like an Italian opera. And then he introduces this song and this idea, and in the midst of the song, almost like Schoolhouse Rock, you're getting an explanation towards what the Orthodox understand that issue to be, and how we should deal with it, especially as children, with some of those really basic things. But Stephen and I just kind of work at the factory. We're always there to greet the guests and to greet the viewers, but it's really Rocco who's making all the magic happen.
I love that. Well, and it's funny because you say like the things, things kids struggle with, right? Because we don't struggle with impatience at all.
That's
No
right.
problem.
Yeah.
I've totally mastered that. No big deal. No, we struggle with all those same things. So it's actually, as parents, I think sometimes it's really lovely to sort of have all of that reiterated for us as we learn, as we take on all the challenges of parenting. It's maybe a good thing for the parents too. But so which of you designed the puppet? Like, is there just the one puppet? Do you have other characters that are puppets, or is it like, because it's a lot of work to make a puppet, right? Like tell me about this puppet. Yeah, Stephen.
We have a grand total of 5 characters. As of now, we have a grand total of 5.5 characters who are puppets. A few of them are unnamed characters who are just kind of show up every so often. But our main characters, we have Rocco, who's the big boss, and then we have Theo, who's the super fun little kid. Andrew's best friend is Theo. He's our little blue puppet. And then we have Ellie, who's very spunky, energetic little girl. And then we have Baba and Yaya, who are 2 old ladies who are best friends, and they're just a hoot and a half.
That's adorable.
And so those are our puppets. Confessionals of Rocco's Music Factory. We actually found the puppets on Amazon.
Really?
But we gave them, now everybody can go make Rocco's Music Factory. We found the costumes for them in various places. We did a lot of thrift shopping and found these costumes that we liked, and then fixed their hair in certain ways, and gives, each one has a certain personality and even certain kind of hand movements that we use to give them that distinctness and individuality. But it's a lot of fun. If the Amazon company that we got these puppets from had another color, we probably would have an extra character somewhere around there. But these are the ones we have more. Maybe in season 4 we can expand the cast.
Season 4. That's for season 4 for sure. But see, that's good for families whose kids are just dying to have like merch from your show, and they're like, I just really need like a plush Rocco. It's like, okay, just go on Amazon. You'll find it. Good luck finding the clothes, but you can figure it out. Well, that's really neat. But it is really hard to make. I actually know someone who makes puppets, and it's like this sort of lifelong journey toward being able to do it. It's really hard. So I do not discount it a bit for that. But Andrew, were you going to say something?
I made one puppet for the show, and it is a coconut. For one of the episodes, we have some floating coconuts, and actually that was a really last minute decision. In fact, I think that was the episode on obedience, and the song that made it in the show is the song. It's on obedience. It's kind of a reggae theme. It's really fun. All of the songs from the first season are currently out on Spotify and Apple Music, wherever you can get your music, and you'll find on that album what we call the original studio version, which was the working version of that song that we had from the time we conceived the show all the way up until we just about released it. We were literally like putting final changes onto the episode, and I was like, Stephen, hear me out. What if we put this in a major key instead of minor? And he was like, oh, it's a lot of work, but we just built it real quick and we did it. And as part of that, I was like, okay, Stephen, hear me out again. I think we need a singing coconut in this episode. And so I had some access to materials on campus, and I whipped up a coconut head. And up close, it's really ugly, especially the back of it. But you don't ever see the back in the episode, so it doesn't matter too much.
Well, you also made the snake in the Western.
Oh, that's right.
That was
Yeah.
the sock puppet with Mr. Potato Head eyeballs. You get real creative with
Nice.
these things.
That's fantastic. I love that. But I mean, if I had $1 for every time I said we need a flying coconut in this episode, like that's just all the time,
Andrew would have $1.
right? Andrew, exactly. No, I think that's lovely. And so you've finished one season. Are you already at work on the second season yet, or what do you guys? What's that?
Yeah,
look like?
The seasons are not particularly denoted on Ancient Faith Kids like the way they're posted. It was more for us, just to be able to work on a batch at a time, and also for releasing the songs and whatnot, so we didn't have to wait super long to be able to release them. But we have right now 3 seasons. Currently, I think a season and a half are posted. I think that's right. I think 2 from the second season have posted, and we're working on the next episode's ready to go, and it releases in a couple of weeks. And we're in that process of revising everything after that. So we'll at least have 3 seasons. If we finish with the 3 seasons and we're just overflowing with ideas, which will probably be the case because we already have a notes app, like a shared note that's just full of ideas, we might end up making another season after that, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, and you guys are coming up with all these ideas, and Stephen hasn't even had his baby yet, right? Like, you're going to have a kid around who's going to be like, well, what's this and what's that? And he's going to give you some ideas. So I have a feeling that might pay dividends in the future.
I'm sure.
But that's really neat. And I want our audience to know, if you're looking for Ancient Faith Kids, you go to youtube.com/@ancientfaith4kids. So it says Ancient Faith for Kids, not just Ancient Faith Kids, although the name of the channel is Ancient Faith Kids. And yes, that is a little complicated and confusing. But all the Rocco's Music Factory videos so far are on there. And so tell me, I notice online you have a Jesus prayer video, for example. How do you talk about the Jesus prayer to kids? How do you teach about it? Which of you came up with the idea for the Jesus prayer video? Or is it
I know
just, it appeared in the Notes app, and who knows?
it might have just appeared in the Notes app. I know I came up with a lot of the song. Granted, half the words were already written because it's a Jesus prayer. I don't know which one of us thought, hey, we should make this an episode. But season 1 was kind of more general. It was technically named The Fruits of the Spirit. So we covered that. Season 2, we wanted to get more into specific Orthodox things that kids might not be able to find elsewhere, because you can find all sorts of stuff on the fruits of the Spirit, but not quite so much on the Jesus prayer and on fasting and saints. And so we wanted to dig a little deeper into that, and we really had to work to explain it on a kid's level that wasn't dumbing it down or kind of whitewashing the faith at all, because the faith is rich and it's full, but trying to communicate that to kids of all ages in a way that everybody can relate to. In a way, it's a really interesting kind of balance, and there's a bit of a trickiness to it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that really is my favorite gift, in a way, that people have, that when someone can take a really complex, high theological idea, in a way, I mean, not that it's ever easy, but maybe it's easier to express it in an academic paper than it is to try to figure out a way to say it so that a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old can understand. And I think it's just such a beautiful and helpful thing when we have people in the church who are able to do that and who take the time to figure out the right way to do that. So I think that's just it's a tremendous blessing. It's wonderful.
It's fun. And then try, taking that theological explanation and putting it to a rhythm and making the words rhyme.
Right? And then make it a song that I can remember. But I mean, but that's great, right? Because the kids are going to remember that song forever. So there will be all of these ideas that we present to our kids that they will forget, but they remember the songs. And like Schoolhouse Rock, right? Like, they'll never forget how a bill becomes a law, and they will never forget any of the things that you just taught them about the Jesus prayer. And I think it is just fantastic. So now, do you guys split everything pretty evenly? I know, Andrew, it sounds like you do a lot of the editing. Who does what on the Rocco's videos?
A lot of my work is on the back and middle, and Stephen's is kind of the front and middle. So he's the better writer between the two of us. And that doesn't mean I don't write, but I might write a really rough draft and he'll come in and tweak it, or he might just write the whole episode and then I'll say, hey, why don't we flip this or that? So he does a lot of the writing of the episodes and he writes a lot of the lyrics, and sometimes we'll come up with a general melody. And then we both are super involved in the filming process. We both play multiple characters. Of course, we both kind of host the show on different for different episodes. And if you're not, we're kind of a two-man team. Occasionally, our wives are able to help us, or sometimes our little brother can come in and help us. In which case, we have like a 3-person or 4-person crew, which makes way more difference than you think it would. But we both are super involved in the filming and in the kind of directing. Even like we'll do a take and be like, hey, why don't you say this way or tweak that or whatnot. And then I take care of all of the hard editing. I'm just actually sitting in front of the computer doing it. And so I typically put together the first kind of rough creative draft and then show it to Stephen. He says, okay, why don't you try this here or try that there? And the same thing with the songs. I kind of flesh out the instrumentation of all the songs and I build all of the tracks. But then I show it to Stephen and say, what do you think about this? And he'll say, why don't you try adding this in there or this harmony or whatnot. And it's really fun, especially when we can spend a couple hours together sitting in front of the computer working on something at the same time, because we both work during the day. So it's in the evenings we might be able to get away from whatever else we have going on, and we'll sit down and just, okay, let's try it this way. No, I don't like that. Let's go back and try it again. No, that's not it. How about we try this, whatnot? It's a long process, but it's really enjoyable, especially when you come out of it and you're like, wow, this is something that's really fun.
Oh, that's neat. That is really neat. Good thing you guys don't argue much anymore, because that is, it's hard to work together on that, right? Like to really get in there and struggle through and try to find the perfect thing. But it's lovely. And so actually I have another question for you. Stephen, you mentioned a search and find book. And it was Andrew's idea. What is the search and find like? And I noticed on your bio, we said, you've put together some books. Tell me about the books and where can people find them and what are they?
So the books are a lot of fun. That was kind of the first big project that we worked on together, was the Orthodox Search and Find book. It is an Orthodox spin on the old I Spy books. So we set up all sorts of crazy scenes around my parents' house because we were both living at home at the time. And so you would walk into the dining room and there'd be a sheet hung up with a bunch of Christmas ornaments hung on it and fake snow thrown everywhere. And most of the pictures in that book were taken probably around 2:00 in the morning, because that's just when we have time to do work. So we kind of go into night owl mode and do all this stuff. But so there's the Orthodox Search and Find book that's available. You can get it on Ancient Faith, or you can also buy it directly from the Orthodox Design Company, which is Andrew's design business. And then there's also the Orthodox Search and Find Junior, which is a book in a similar style, but for younger kids. That this one is focused on colors. So there are scenes, and you have to pick out what in the scene is green and what in the scene is blue. So that one was a lot of fun too.
Oh, those are neat. I love those. And that's cool. Andrew, I didn't know you were the Orthodox Design Company. I've been to your website before. It's excellent. So that's so cool. All right. So in fact, speaking of which, like, where can people find you guys? So we talked about Ancient Faith Kids, which is youtube.com/@ancientfaith4kids, the number 4. And then you just mentioned Orthodox Design Company. What is that? Is it just orthodoxdesigncompany.com? What is it?
Yeah, so my website is orthodoxdesigncompany.com, and then my Instagram, which is really what I keep the most updated, is @orthodoxdesignco.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to post those on our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page for the show, and I always like to put up all the links so everybody can find you. Okay, excellent. So you've got Orthodox Design Company, @Orthodox Design Co. How about you? Do you have any other things going on, Stephen, that we should know about? Any websites people need to go to?
Not yet. I'm pretty much, if you're going to see my face, it's going to be smack next to Andrew's at this point. So
Awesome.
One of these days, I'll get my chocolate business up and running, and you'll see Stephen's Gourmet Sweets somewhere. But
Oh,
one day.
that's so cool, though. That's really neat. Well, that's wonderful. And then just one last thing. So, Andrew, you're thinking about becoming a priest. You're planning to become a priest. What is the timeline on that? Like, are you going to go to seminary this fall? Are you going to What's going to happen to Rocco if you go to seminary?
my kind of general plan, because I just graduated, like I said, this past May. So my wife has another year in school, and her school is actually fully virtual, but she has a full-time job right now. So we decided that we'll shoot for me starting seminary, hopefully, God willing, next fall of 2024. And I haven't decided which seminary yet. I was actually talking to some people this weekend about it, and I've got to put together a time to go visit both St. Vladimir's and St. Tikhon's at some point, because it's between those two. But we should. Rocco may not live forever in new episodes, but we should be able to finish at least the 18 we currently have, plus maybe another season before then. And if we're not making more episodes of Rocco, I'm sure we'll come up with something else to keep creating. So,
I have a feeling you will. I agree. Well, that's wonderful. And so your plan would be to be a priest in the OCA, because you guys are in an OCA
yes.
parish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're both readers. What made you decide, Stephen, to become a reader? Do you want to be a priest?
Well, I basically my approach is I'll just do whatever my spiritual father tells me. I was, funnily enough, the last one in my family to know that I was going to be a reader, because I was living in Florida for a little bit, and when I got home, they said, "Hi, you're going to be a reader in October, whatever month it was, November maybe."
Wow.
And I said, "Okay, well, maybe blessed." And then we actually, I've been informed that we are slated to be ordained subdeacons this coming October. So my oldest brother has already gone through seminary. He's a deacon now. He'll be, God willing, ordained a priest in October, and will be subdiaconalized. And that's
the word for
as
it.
far as I get, but diaconal, yeah, it's in the dictionary somewhere.
Pretty sure. Pretty sure. No, it's funny though, because you're not the first person who's been just sort of ordained without really much discussion beforehand, much, much. So, would you like to be a subdeacon? But it's excellent that you'll just show up and do it. I love that.
Yep.
I love that very much. Well, guys, this has been absolutely a delight. I've enjoyed this so, so much. And I know that our audience, you guys are going to all have to go check out Rocco's big music show. Am I right? Did I just make that up? Music Factory. Rocco's Music Factory. It's like I'm renaming your show for you. You might consider it.
Probably season 4.
But, right, like, you can be a deacon also. I'm gonna do it. But guys, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. It was a blast.
Yeah.
It was great. And thank you for being our first video guests. It's very exciting on Ancient Faith Radio. So this has been a delight. And thank you to our audience for joining us again. And come back next Sunday night and we'll meet another everyday Orthodox Christian. We'll see you then.